Okay, one more thing I wanted to say before this video. I don't think I said it that clearly. But you can call me a nut job if you want, but I don't believe that Japan or Vietnam or some communist conspiracy or socialist bloc or whatever. I don't think Russia, I don't think China, I don't think Nigeria, I don't think India wants to be a global hegemon. I think they want to trade in peace. I think they want to do the best for their own people. I think the United States of America is a unique, exotic, unusual country. Its story, its origin story, its narrative, its belief system is unique. And it is by far the most desirous of hegemony, of empire, of control. America is a country of control freaks. What do you give a trillionaire when they have everything? You give them more control. Control over resources, control over people's minds and body, control over anything and everything. And it is a unique place, a unique culture. So I think if America backed off a bit and focused on soft power, if it was more helpful and less rapacious, the whole world would benefit. Everyone would live better. Now, we had a honeymoon period after the Berlin Wall fell, but it didn't last long because American corporatists and Western corporatists wanted more control. And because they didn't get it, all hell broke loose. And so, yeah, I don't think China wants to control the world. And I don't think Russia does either. So call me a lunatic for having that opinion. But if you study America from a socio-cultural, economic, political, anthropological point of view, literary, movies, pop culture, whatever, I think you'll find that it's the most insanely rapacious and control-hungry culture in the world. And it even happens on a micro level, in neighborhoods and cities and towns, states, the various governments, state and local governments, the federal government, the deep state, the FBI, the CIA, everything's trying to get more control. And ultimately, they will destroy the world if they can't maintain the hegemony. But the rest of the world is not just going to bend over and accept it. So unfortunately, we're in trouble. Well, hello, folks. I'm a one-click wonder. No comment, no clicks, few views. But anyway, I continue. I was reading a lot this week, as I usually do, and came across a lot of things that were interesting. Thunderfoot put out a new video debunking, or not even debunking, just making fun of the idiots that go on YouTube and pretend like they're scientists or doctors or health experts or some other kind of expert. And people watch it by the millions, because these people purport to know everything or know something special. They don't know anything. They're just pretending to know something. And because we're too lazy to learn things, because it requires time, energy, and effort, we just listen to them because they say they know something. And we think, well, it sounds reasonable. So that's the way things are. And it's kind of sad, actually. I was also reading about the election stuff. And it's kind of sad for me to think about because vote for R, vote for D, it's not going to change anything. Okay, I'll go through what I was reading in a separate video really quickly just to kind of make a video newsletter and suggest some articles you might want to look at if you want to challenge your world view vis-a-vis your consumption of cable news or mainstream media or whatever. You just might want to, take a look at some other sources that I think are interesting, in my opinion, but who cares, right? Anyway, today, really quickly, I want to discuss hegemony. I had a definition here real quick from the Oxford English Language Dictionary. It just says leadership or dominance, especially by one state or social group over another. So Germany was united under Prussian hegemony after 1871, and of course the British would say hegemony. So anyway, we live in a modern industrial technological global economy, and the basic socioeconomic faith or belief system or ideology at the moment, and in particular since the Reagan era, has been what we call neoliberalism, and you can learn about that. It is a thing, definitively so, and it does describe a lot, and it does prove predictive, and it is an ideology that animates everything, our whole world. And I've mentioned a couple books on it that you could read that are very short and terse and to the point, and I hope you do that. Anyway, it's not meant just to be a pejorative or some kind of bugaboo word that we're all supposed to run and scream, neoliberal, neoliberal, neoliberal. It's not like that. It's a pervasive ideological belief system that animates everything we do in our culture and global economy. And ultimately, it's destructive. Now, when I say listen to nature, I don't mean go out and sit by a tree and listen to nature or be a hippie or something like that. I mean learn about nature through science. That science is the best toolkit. All of the various domains of science with all of their tools, mathematics and theories and equipment and technology, and the history of science and philosophy of science and everything. Science is the best way to understand how nature works. The rest of it is storytelling and believing stuff. And homo hubris is also homo believer. I have to look up the Latin for believer. But we're true believers. We like to believe things. So we come up with stories about how things work. And many, many, many years ago, hundreds, thousands of years ago, it was easier to believe stories because that's all we had back then. We didn't have science. We hadn't evolved or progressed in our knowledge and understanding of things. We didn't have the tools back then. Yes, we had mathematics and geometry and other things, philosophy and whatnot. And these are all great things, but we didn't understand stuff as well as we do now. So yeah, neo-Darwinism or the theory of evolution is the thing. It's robust. It's like when you talk about scientific theories, it's almost like when you talk about conspiracy fiction as opposed to conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theory is just a story with no evidence. And they're fun, but they're meaningless. There could be kernels of truth within the story, as usual, but they describe nothing, predict nothing, and mean nothing. That's conspiracy fiction. Now, a theory would be something where you had more evidence, and you could point to these lines of evidence and say, I think there's a conspiracy here. We all know people conspire, and we all know there are conspiracies everywhere, but you'd need some evidence for it. So when you talk about empiricism or things like that, obviously you're talking about discovering and explaining and experimenting various lines of evidence that lead you to surmise or something that eventually become a theory of how things work. Mechanics is much easier than sociology, obviously human psychology and human culture. These are much more complex adaptive systems than even understanding the physics of the sun. People spout a lot of nonsense about these things because they pretend to understand physics in a Deepak Chopra kind of way or whatever, but they're not really saying anything. So Thunderfoot is a guy I watch on YouTube who talks about people like this. It's always entertaining and humorous and enlightening. So I would recommend watching his videos about these kinds of things. But anyway, hegemony is a thing. Obviously, under that definition, the West, quote unquote, or, the United States of America, the empire, quote unquote, desires hegemony. In other words, they believe their story, they believe their PR, they believe their press kit, they believe their propaganda. They're true believers in the city on a hill, the exceptionalism, the rugged individualism, the Ayn Randish kind of bizarre libertarianism, in the John Lockean kind of idea that you put the spade in the dirt and you're productive with the ground and the stuff, and you have dominion over it. And all of this in the States is infused with all kinds of religious ideas and beliefs and so on. It's a big, complex hodgepodge of stuff that people believe. And of course, you can read all the economists if you want. You can understand Keynes versus, Milton Friedman or whatever you want to do. Von Mises or all these things. You don't have to do that, but you can read other people's work that discuss their work and get a fairly good idea of what their ideology is and so on. But anyway, hegemony comes with a price because it's coercive in its nature. If we live in a world full of cultures and nation states that are free, independent, sovereign, and so on, if we want to go in and control everything, it includes a lot of stuff we want to control, and different countries or cultures or peoples might not want us to control it. So there's always an element of force and violence. So colonialism has always been violent. For example, these proxy wars and wars on terror, wars on drugs, they're incredibly violent, deadly, destructive. They serve no purpose other than to maintain that story and to maintain a certain dominance by corporations involved in things that support that coercive use of violence, military-industrial complex, and so on. Bill Clinton saved the military-industrial complex back in the 90s. They weren't making enough money, so there were some mergers and acquisitions, and it all kind of panned out into a bigger, more robust, more state-supported military-industrial complex. Of course, they needed war to convince everyone in the world that they had to buy this stuff because, you're going to make these really complicated weapons systems. You have to sell them to somebody. And if they have no use, what's the point in spending $35 billion on an airplane, right? So anyway, that's not a conspiracy. That's just the way the system works. And people benefit from feeding into the system. They get they get a piece of the pie, right? If they play along. So
my cousins aren't bright enough to be anything but finger puppets. And my brother has faith only in his own cunning. What do you suppose they're up to, my brother and these American lawyers? Tell me, what are they thinking?
What are they thinking? What are they thinking? They're thinking that it's running out. It's running out. And 90% of what's left is in the Middle East. Look at the progression. Versailles, Suez, 1973, Gulf War I, Gulf War II. This is a fight to the death. So what are they thinking? Great. They're thinking, keep playing, keep buying yourself new toys, keep spending $50,000 a night on your hotel room, but don't invest in your infrastructure, don't build a real economy, so that when you finally wake up, they will have sucked you dry, and you will have squandered the greatest natural resource in history.
Come with me, please. I studied at Oxford. I have a PhD from Georgetown. I want to create a parliament. I want to give women the right to vote. I want an independent judiciary. I want to start a petroleum exchange in the Middle East. Cut the speculators out of the business. Why are the major oil exchanges in London and New York anyway? I'll put all of our energy up for competitive bidding. I'll run pipe through Iran to Europe like you proposed. I'll ship to China. Anything that achieves efficiency and maximizes profit. Profit which I will then use to rebuild my country.
Great. That's exactly what you should do.
Exactly. Except your president rings my father and says I've got unemployment in Texas, Kansas, Washington State. One phone call later, we're stealing out of our social programs in order to buy overpriced airplanes. We owed the Americans, but we've repaid that debt. I accepted a Chinese bid, the highest bid. And suddenly I'm a terrorist. I'm a godless communist. Dean Whiting, who represents not only these aggrieved royals and my brother, but also Connex Oil. They've been pressuring my father to invalidate the Chinese contract, but they underestimate him. This is about his legacy to his people.
So obviously, war is extremely lucrative. Much has been written, many movies have been made. It costs normal people everything, their lives, but it costs the corporate players, the global players, nothing, because they're making money while they sleep during these wars. Schindler's List, right? He wound up doing good things, but in the beginning he was just going to build pots for the German army, So this thing continues, which is why we're in the pickle we're in now, and some people don't think it's a big deal because they don't pay attention, and they're not particularly worried about limited nuclear war or strategic nuclear war or world war. I tend to think we're already in World War III because it's the beginning of the middle, maybe, of World War III, where the ideologues in the United States, call them what you will, the neoliberals, the neocons, the whatever, the Democrats, the Republicans, they're the same. These people want to maintain a more robust, more powerful global hegemony. And so they're willing to go to war to keep it. So, Miller in the Republican side, he's telling everybody that they've got to go to war with China. Well, the Democrats are doing the same thing. So, what good is that going to do us? And of course, it's not like we don't have problems with our environment and with global heating and other things that are existential threats. There's a lot of things to think about here. And all we do is play these stupid war games that wind up getting lots of innocent people killed. And I think even soldiers, Russian soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, Israeli soldiers, Palestinian soldiers, all of them are victims of this stupid game. And my heart bleeds for all of them. I don't really want us to live this way. I think we need to develop the knowledge and learn things and imagine a better way to live. But anyway, that's really a complicated question or discussion. So the West is ruled by the United States of America, and NATO is a security arm of the U.S. hegemon, and it's headed by the USA. People talk about deep state or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the security apparatus, all the different acronym agencies that we know about all too well. DARPA and organizations like that are busy with AI, with drone swarm technology, where Google's involved, Facebook's involved, all the big corporations, the cloud capital corporations are involved in developing weapon systems that use big data, lots of data, to get lots of information from a rapidly transforming battlefield so that they can be more efficient and effective at destroying the enemy. Israel and the Middle East in general has always been a good proving ground, testing ground for all of these technologies. And Ukraine is now a very special testing ground for these horrific technologies, weapons systems. And all of this is to gain the power, militarily, to maintain hegemony. So if the world, the vast majority of people around the world, let's say they all want to move to Texas for a better life or whatever, because America's all that. It's just, everyone in the world, whether you're from Mozambique or Finland or Thailand, wants to move to America and be American because it's just such a great way to live. And, I watched UFC yesterday, the Ultimate Fighter series, and, you see these people from around the world being professional athletes trying to improve their lives, moving to the United States to train in MMA. And these are beautiful people, lovely people with families from around the world, normal human beings, just like you, who are amazed by Las Vegas, by all the stuff, all the amazing, pool lounges and whatnot, casinos and entrepreneurs, rich people. And they're just gobsmacked about it, excited about it, and they aspire to have this life. Well, this life, unfortunately, if you study nature through science, is not sustainable. We're going to run into problems. We already have. And eventually it's going to threaten our species, basically, Homo hubris, Homo believer. It's an existential threat, our lifestyle, because we live in a world with limitations and limited resources. And so technology isn't the answer to anything. It can help, right? But generally we create problems in order to create solutions, in order to create more profit. for a small, tiny percentage of people who play the game, who run the corporations and all of the service providers who help them run the corporations. So, of course, you think I'm crazy if you haven't, been reading about things like this for years. You think I'm a nutcase, of course we can solve all of the problems, You're going to watch these YouTubers with their clickbait, uh, you know, titles about, how crystalline water, if it's infused with light, gives you perfect health or whatever. Because learning things is difficult. You want to do the math, you want to know the math, but learning the math is too hard. So it's better to have people tell you stories that just sound really good and make you feel better so that you can get back to your addictions, basically, and not have to think about too much. But most people are just involved in family life, trying to take care of each other and trying to live a good life, a decent life. And people are naturally a cooperative, loving species. And we don't have to, we're really not crazy, insane competitors who just want to fight all the time. Of course, in the old days, the best way to optimize a project was to have a lot of slaves because you needed people, you give them some food and that's enough energy to do work for you, to build a castle or whatever. And sometimes it was easier to get stuff, booty, treasure, by going out and raiding. But the majority of your time would be spent growing food and taking care of each other and being in community with one another and so on. You weren't always raiding at war or, whipping slaves to build pyramids. Anyway, since civilization, the dawn of civilization, big scale communities, we've had this insatiable appetite for more energy, more things, to use more materials. And in that sense, human beings are an invasive species, a very destructive invasive species. And we're very successful at it because we know how to invent tools and we know how to burn things. And we have language and abstract, thinking and so on. Well, Nate Hagen's put out a little piece on his YouTube channel about, more or less discussing, third, fourth order effects and nth degree, like Schmachtenberger says, effects on things. We don't think things through like that, most of us. We're just trying to get through the day. But anyway, today's world is interconnected. We have all these forms of communication and internet, smartphones, and all that. And to have all of this technology, all of these tools, we need global standards and regulations. We need to code capital. We need laws. We need a rules-based order. And we need to shape narratives and ideologies in order to maintain the hegemony. We have to have all these things. We have to have access to natural resources, to energy flows, whether it's oil and gas or something else. And hopefully, and to do all this, we need more stuff and more innovation and more production and more access to more markets and all that kind of stuff. So whatever happens, whether it's Donald or Joe, they're going to be bragging about the stock market. If the Fed and other banks can maintain liquidity, keep printing money, keep the system going, and we keep producing weapons and stuff to maintain U.S. hegemony, the stock market's going to continue to break records. And a small percentage of people are going to get super filthy, ugly rich, while the rest of us are going to be bled dry by the rentiers, right? The rentier capitalists. We're going to be paying to breathe in the future through some app on an implant connected to our smartphones or whatever that Elon or somebody is going to make. We have to look at population and all this kind of stuff, pronatalism and whatnot, but that's for another day. So, all these countries and alliances are looking at two things basically now. We have U.S. hegemony, so we have Europe, Australia, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, places like this that are firmly in the neoliberal, fossil capital, U.S. hegemony camp, U.S. security umbrella, which I really think of as a U.S. insecurity umbrella because it creates so much enmity and disaster through its proxy wars and its wars on terror, wars on drugs, wars on whatever, wars on ideas, culture wars. I just watched the movie Civil War, and I thought it was pretty cool because it focused on the journalists' road trip, which was great. I didn't even know who was fighting who or whom or whatever. During the story, I had to look it up on the web. Whoa, what was the fight about? But I liked it because the story was about the journalists. But the thing is, Americans tend to like this kind of competition and rapacious activity, and they love violence. They're crazy about violence. Now, most Americans don't, but who cares what most Americans think, And of course, our entertainment, our music, our culture is full of violence. Our history is full of violence. And every week there's mass shootings and all that kind of stuff. Somebody ambushes a police officer and kills them or whatever. I mean, it's just so different in other parts of the world. It's a very unique, exotic country. And this is the country that the West wants to run things. And by God, if it can't run things, Joe says, if God takes me out of the presidency, I'll step down or whatever. We believe that, the best of all possible worlds is that this crazy, exotic, neoliberal, rapacious, violent culture that wants to just eat up the whole world through consumerism, devour the whole planet and more planets on top of that and more asteroids and more solar systems and more galaxies on top of that. I mean, if we did manage to become machines and, fly around the universe, we would be, just consuming it. We'd be destroying it like some crazy robotic vandals, I mean, we are a paperclip maximizing machine, our species. We are animals. We're just animals. We don't know how to live within nature, what is it?
Every single day going MIA. Yeah, I'm over, yeah, what more can I say? 너는 지루해, move out of the way. Just let it go, boy. 머리 bling.
Maximum power principle, whatever. Yeah, not today. But anyway, we're going way beyond what's required to have a good life, and basically destroying our habitat in the process. And if we did become, transhuman robots zipping around the universe, we would be ripping it apart to build whatever the hell we thought we had to have. And looking for enemies to fight because it'd be good for some reason, for the stock market, the galactic stock market or something like that. I don't think we're going to get there. I think transhumanism and techno-optimism is the wrong way to go. Accelerationism and so on in the NRX world is absurd. We don't make benevolent kings anymore. And we're nowhere near creating a society that can, a global, ideology or philosophy that would allow for a multipolar world where different cultures and different regions cooperated in a sustainable way that was health promoting for ecosystems, for the environment, so on, and for human beings in society. I just don't think we're going to get there. But anyway, technology isn't a silver bullet, and neither is science. You know, you need the humanities and science and technology to sort it out, but you have to do it within a story, a belief system, a narrative that prioritizes global health. And by that, obviously, I'm talking about biology. We're not talking about the health of a lead isotope. We're talking about the health of living systems. A human body is a living system and composed of other living systems. And we are embedded in nature. That's a big word. In an environment of living systems. And if you can't see the forest for the trees, you're in deep, deep trouble. So until we get that right, we're headed for a major crash. Now, you can prep if you want. You can be an urban prepper, a city prepper, a mountain prepper, whatever. You can buy ammo and put up fences and build bunkers and food stocks. None of that's going to save you. We work together to fix this thing, to build a better way of life, or we all go down together. Because at the end of the day, when panic hits, your stuff's just going to be a target for people who need it and don't have it. And, you know, if the best we can do is figure out how to kill each other, you know, I think we're more than capable of doing that right now with, you know, AI, big data, drone swarms, and nuclear war. We have no problem killing each other, but do you want to be the one shooting people? You know, like that scene in Civil War where the guy says, "Tell me where you're from. Are you American?" And one guy says Hong Kong. He just shoots him.
What kind of colleagues?
Journalists.
Not American. And America, basically, with its hegemony, will kill anyone who doesn't want to be American enough. That's what we do. And I know it sounds harsh because it's not what you do if you're an American. You're a nice person. But the logic, or the system's logic, the logic of the system is this idea that if it doesn't run the whole show and use all of its resources, intellectual and material and technological and economic and whatever, to produce more profit for a small percentage of human population, we're going to kill you. You get on board, you know, learn your MMA in Dagestan or Tajikistan, go to Las Vegas or New Mexico, join a gym down there, get better, develop your skills, get into the UFC, make a shitload of money, become the champion, live the good life, buy some cars, you know, build some businesses like Conor McGregor did, and get rich, and then tell everyone in Ireland how Ireland's being overrun by immigrants. So the great replacement theory, the pure blood Irish people are going to be wrecked. And so Uber Boyo wants to say that, why don't we act like Israel? Well, you don't have America backing you like Israel does because you're not sitting in the oil fields. You're a little island in the northern Atlantic next to UK, you know, England or Scotland, and you don't have that. You're struggling to get wind power and fix your grid and sort out the Brexit problems and get affordable housing for normal people. Immigration is not your problem. And America's not going to take care of you unless you have good labor arbitrage to bargain with, which you had, which is why a lot of big tech companies went there in the 90s, because there were educated people there to work in the corporations. But they've moved on to other places. And of course, it does behoove one to build their own corporations and whatever, but to what end? To what purpose? What are you building these companies for? Just to get rich and employ people? And that's fine. Other people are saying, well, we need U.S. hegemony because it would be immoral and unethical to allow Nigeria and Gambia, Senegal, and Morocco, and Ecuador, and whatever, to deny them the lifestyle of the rich and famous that America has, ostensibly.
How lavish a lifestyle would you lead if you were the richest man on earth? In this world-exclusive edition of Lifestyles, we'll explore the fabulous private domains of Adnan Khashoggi, whose globe-trotting existence is so unbelievably lush, it has inspired blockbuster movies and novels which only pale in comparison to the true story you will see in the next 60 minutes.
Your host on this exclusive edition of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous is celebrity interviewer Robin Leach. In the untold story of the richest man on earth.
Despite our crumbling infrastructure and health and welfare and all that kind of thing. So it would just be wrong. I mean, why would you not want to have somebody from Madagascar? Why would you prevent them from having a 12-car garage and fast fashion and fast food and all that kind of stuff that America has? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Well, this is the hubris, the arrogance of these people, because they think that if you're not American like them, like a suburbanite from Scranton or from Houston or whatever, you're just not living. You're a poor slob, a poor tragic soul. If you live in some town in China or Siberia, you poor slob. You're trying to dress American. You're trying to have knockoff Starbucks in Moscow. You're trying as best you can under normal circumstances to be hip like Americans. Maybe you're painting your subways or painting your trains, or whatever. But you're not getting there enough because you don't have enough stuff. Your GDP isn't high enough, and your purchasing power parity, and you're not consuming enough. So we assume that any other way of life other than wanting to have a 40,000 square foot mansion with a 40,000 square foot deck on 4 acres, you're just a simp, an idiot. You're living a horrible life. Well, maybe some people somewhere at some time, if they had a culture and if they had a healthy, sustainable way of life, were also happy human beings full of love and creativity and joy and challenges and, healthy competition and so on and so forth. We can't imagine that. The idea is that, these people who run the game have to get wealthier and wealthier, and the wealth transfers to the top is obscene. It's obscene. Does anyone in the world need more than $50 million to have a really happy, status-driven existence? Really to be hip and cool and do whatever one wants to do. I don't know. But anyway, we seem to think that the richer the wealthiest people get, the better it is for everybody. Do you really believe that? No, you don't. Of according to polls, people don't believe that. I don't think people care much about U.S. hegemony or hegemony. They want to live a healthy, decent life, a meaningful life with a modicum of respect and dignity. And it's not so hard to provide that. Give people an education, give them a place to live. But of course, to talk like that, any kind of talk about a collective is socialism or communism, and that's just satanic. Nobody understands what any of that means, but they're taught to believe that it's satanic. Margaret Thatcher, they're only individuals and families and blah blah blah.
Underlines.
And then a politician emerged who also believed that people should be allowed to express themselves. Instead of being controlled by the state, the individual should become the central focus of society.
Some socialists seem to believe that people should be numbers in a state computer. We believe they should be individuals. We're all unequal. No one, thank heavens, is quite like anyone else, however much the socialists may pretend otherwise. And we believe that everyone has the right to be unequal, but to us, every human being is equally important. A man's right to work as he will, to spend what he earns, to own property, to have the state as servant and not as master, they are the essence of a free economy. And on that freedom, all our other freedoms depend.
And this comes right out of, these economic thinkers after World War II. It's absurd. And you don't even know where it comes from. Most of us don't. But we take it for granted. And we click up and we hang with our team, and we don't care about the other guys. So if there is a civil war in the United States, Americans are going to get some, because that's what they're good at. They're good at killing each other, just like Chinese people were good at killing each other during their civil war, just like the English or the Anglo-Saxons were good at killing each other during the English Civil War, whatever Civil War, the French Revolution, World War I, World War II. Look at the destruction the West rained down upon itself during World War II. And that wasn't that long ago. And since then it's been, can we drop more bombs than all the bombs dropped in World War II on Vietnam? A little third world country? Sorry, I know that's a derogatory expression, and can we top that? Or can we be more high-tech about it? We have these targeting systems. So how much collateral damage is okay if we kill this one terrorist in this housing block? Full of children and old people. We get this one high value target, we're allowed to kill 100 civilians. That's the game. So isn't that wonderful? We have the technology. Great. So now we have the technology to basically turn Ukraine into a 20-year war. Who benefits? Cui bono? I mean, come on, man. How many Ukrainians, if 1 million Ukrainians have already left Ukraine to avoid becoming cannon fodder, and if older people are manning the front lines now, when does Ukraine become a completely failed state? And when do the Europeans move in? I mean, think of Poland, Lithuania, think of history. Ukraine wasn't always Ukraine, right? It was part of a greater something or another. You had the Habsburg Empire and so on. You had the Polish, Greater Poland. I don't know. I can't off the top of my head tell you about all that. But you had different hegemonies on smaller scales. And the map, the boundaries on the maps change all the time. So what happens to the Ukrainians that lived in Ukraine prior to 2014? What happens to them? They get displaced as other Europeans move in to fight the Russian bear, to kill Putler, and eventually just take it over. We go in with our corporations. The biggest thing that really pissed off American oligarchs back in the day was that after the Soviet Union fell apart and the Russian Federation came along, Putin and other leaders were not going to just give Russia away and all of its resources, energy resources and so on, to foreign corporations, to American corporations, the hegemon. This made them freaking mad. So I thought we were going to live in peace and we were all going to be cool and NATO wasn't going to expand any further. And we made all these promises and, pipelines to Europe from Russia and all this kind of stuff. But, you don't play ball with our corporations, man. You are screwed. United Fruit Company, you're fucked. Because our guys run the show, or nobody runs the show. And we're willing to go to war forever to prove that. Only this time, it's not like the last 20 years in Afghanistan. This time, it's a conventional stalemate, meat grinder horror war that goes on and on as the world heats up, as we have to fight and struggle for solutions and answers to all of these other existential threats that all are caused by our way of life, neoliberal, global, rapacious capitalism. And we're not going to address those issues. We're just not going to, because we don't know about it and we don't care. We're busy feeding our addictions. And we just want to be happy. We want to feel good. So we're going to go on YouTube and listen to people talk about crystals and whatever. And all these shows that get so many views just talking nonsense. And again, it goes back to this thing where everyone wants to know math, but they don't want to learn math. It's too hard. So if you don't learn math, you don't learn math, If you can't plant a spud to feed yourself, you don't feed yourself. So the hegemon, is it a good thing? The U.S. hegemon? I don't think so. What would be a good thing is a world where sovereign countries and regions with their unique treaties of cooperation and collaboration and innovation work to develop a world that was focused on the health of the biosphere and everything in it, all those complex emergent and adaptive systems we know as life on Earth. And if we were focused on that, we could figure out a way to be happy, to enjoy life, even if we all didn't have a monster electric truck. Do we really need to have one? The world's built to sell you shit, and you're gonna buy it because you think it's cool. And it excites you for a minute, to have the new thing. Even if you have to borrow money and risk your life to have it, which is sad, because life is more than that. Human life is about relationships. It's about growing personally, intellectually, spiritually, over the course of your lifetime, however long or short that might be. Hegemony be damned. Thank you for listening. Julian T. out.
It's ironic.